My sister tried to take my son's custody by saying I'm unfit. I found her emails and gave them to the judge before her lie could win. My sister filed for custody and said I was unfit the week after my son turned 3. I got a court summons in the mail like it was a bill I hadn't paid. They served it at drop-off while I was handing my son to his preschool teacher. My stomach went cold, and I had to sit on the curb for a minute and breathe through it. Things started feeling off when she asked to babysit more often. She always wanted time with him, so I let her take him for Saturday afternoons. Things started getting worse when she texted our mom a list of complaints about me. Our mom forwarded me the screenshots and told me not to answer yet. 2 weeks later, I got a call from my lawyer. My sister was claiming neglect, that I left my son unsupervised, that I had a drinking problem, and that my apartment was unsafe. I laughed at first because none of it was true. Then I read the petition and saw the list of alleged incidents, the dates, even fake daycare notes. My lawyer said the claims were detailed enough to force a hearing. He told me to gather everything: receipts, texts, photos, medical records, people who could vouch for me. My sister had a history of being dramatic and attention-seeking. She liked to be the one who saved people. But the petition wasn't about heroics. It read like someone had built a case brick by brick. Things started getting worse when CPS showed up for an interview. They came to my apartment unannounced and asked about supervision, safe sleep, and snacks. I handed them my phone with doctor appointment texts and vaccination records. They took notes and said they'd pass it to the court. Then my landlord called and said my sister had filed a formal complaint about toys in the hallway and a broken gate. Those were easy to fix. I sent photos of the repaired latch and a receipt for the handyman. That should have been the end of it. Instead, the judge set a temporary custody hearing and ordered supervised visits until the court decided. I went from living in my small apartment with my son to watching him through a window twice a week. That was the part that almost broke me. For a minute, I thought I knew why she was doing this. Maybe money, maybe jealousy. It got worse when my mother told me my sister had been telling people that I was unstable. Neighbors, family, friends, even coworkers had heard her version. My son kept asking where mommy was when I left for work after the supervised visits. Those 3 words from his small mouth felt like a hammer. Then I found something that changed everything. I was scrolling through old emails while looking for receipts, and I saw a subject line that made my hands shake. It was from my sister to a friend, date stamped 2 months before the petition. The subject read, "Planned custody route." I opened it and my chest dropped. She wrote about staging complaints, about planting evidence of neglect, about convincing CPS to open a case. She listed dates she planned to be with my son so she could observe my parenting. She suggested a friend fabricate an incident at a playground to get police involved. I felt sick. I printed every page. 2 days later, I found another thread. She'd emailed the friend asking for advice on how to phrase statements to sound worried but not crazy. There were receipts tucked into the exchanges. Payments to a printing shop for flyers she claimed she never made. My lawyer told me to keep quiet. He said this was gold and we needed to build a paper trail linking her words to the petition. We filed a motion to admit the emails as evidence and asked the judge for an emergency hearing. My hands shook when I slid the folder across the conference table. It felt like I was holding a slow-motion bomb. If the judge didn't accept the emails, they would still be words without weight. The emergency hearing was the kind that hollowed me out. My sister sat across from me with her chin high and eyes like knives. She denied everything and insisted she just wanted what was best for my son. Her voice was calm. She sounded rehearsed. Then my lawyer handed over our printed copies and asked the judge to read a sample. The courtroom went quiet, like someone had left a window open in winter. The judge read the lines out loud. She read the planned custody route subject and the text that said plant evidence at the park. My sister's face changed in a way that made me feel guilty and relieved at the same time. She tried to laugh it off, but the judge asked for clarification and her voice faltered. For a minute, I thought we were okay. The judge paused, looked at her notes, and scheduled a full evidentiary hearing. It got worse when my sister filed a motion claiming the emails were fake. She said someone could have forged them, that they were taken out of context. My lawyer expected that and had the metadata printed. The timestamps, IP addresses, and login locations matched her home. We subpoenaed the email provider for verification. It took 2 weeks in a court order, but it came back clean. Then everything fell apart at once. My mother called and said she couldn't believe her daughter would go so far. My sister called me and begged me to talk, saying she didn't mean for the emails to be used that way. She claimed she'd been angry and that sending messages didn't mean she actually planned it. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to believe her voice when it cracked, but the paper was there, and the judge had ordered the full hearing. My son stayed home with my dad during a custodial exchange and politely asked if mommy could sleep at our house. Dad said things he shouldn't have said to me about family and forgiveness, and I drove away with my hands on the steering wheel so tight my knuckles hurt. Then I found an even worse thread, an email where she had coached our mom on what to say if CPS called, telling her to emphasize missed appointments and messy living conditions. That proved coordination. That proved it wasn't a one-off event. I printed that too and placed it behind the first folder. My folder grew thick enough to make a small thud when it landed on the judge's bench. My lawyer told me to be ready for personal attacks. He warned me she'd try to flip it and say I was paranoid, that I was the one showing vindictiveness. I prepared myself anyway. I wrote down every date, every time my sister had shown up with my son, and then accused me later. On the day of the full hearing, The courtroom smelled like old coffee and shoe polish. My son sat with my dad and drew cars on a coloring sheet while I listened to my sister testify. She spoke like someone who'd rehearsed in front of a mirror. She said she'd only wanted to protect my son, that she was worried and was doing the right thing. Then the judge asked to see the emails. I watched my sister's hands go from steady to small trembles. The judge read the messages out loud and asked my sister point blank if she meant those words. My sister said she was venting and never intended to harm me. My lawyer then presented the metadata printouts. The judge looked at the screen with the IP addresses and the timestamps that matched the dates my sister had been in my house. She asked my sister how the emails matched the time she had been babysitting. My sister's face crumpled and she started to cry in a way that looked very practiced. We had witnesses who testified the friend she'd emailed had been at my sister's house the night of one of the alleged incidents. Those details matched the emails. For a minute, I thought we'd lost. My stomach dropped when my sister's lawyer tried to paint me as obsessive and controlling. But then the judge asked my sister a direct question about the fabricated video she claimed to have. She hadn't mentioned the email that described how to make a short clip to make supervision look poor. My sister stammered and then admitted she had recorded portions of drop-off and edited timestamps to make it look like I abandoned my son. The judge sighed and said that was deeply troubling. After that, everything moved fast. The judge revoked her petition for custody and ordered that she stay away from my son unsupervised until further notice. They fined her for filing a malicious petition and ordered her to pay court costs. The judge also ordered family therapy and gave me temporary sole custody with supervised visitation decisions left to my discretion. When we walked out of the courthouse, my son ran into my arms and hit my chest with both small fists and said, "I missed you." I cried in the parking lot because it was the first time in months I felt like we were okay. For a minute, I thought we were safe. Then I got the bill for attorney fees that made my stomach flip again. My parents called and said they were ashamed and sorry and asked if I could forgive my sister. My answer was that forgiveness was on a long list, and I couldn't check it off right now. It got worse when my sister filed for reconsideration and threatened appeals. She hired a new lawyer who tried to say she had been coerced by family or that the metadata was misread. We fought through motions and subpoenas for months. Every time she filed something, I had to go back to court and relive it. The judge ordered sanctions after my sister admitted she'd lied about a second school incident. That admission put her credibility in the trash bin. My lawyer negotiated for the final hearing to close to the public because of my son's age. I agreed immediately. I didn't want his face on the internet again. For months, CPS followed up with recommended parenting classes for both of us and supervised family sessions. I went to every one. My son came to the ones appropriate for his age too, with crayons and a therapist who sat on tiny chairs. My sister was told to stay away from social media, talk about the case. She still did, but the judge kept logging violations and reducing her privileges. The worst part was realizing how many people had believed her before the emails existed. The phone calls from neighbors and friends who said they thought I was careless cut deep. But little by little, the truth lived in court records. The emails, the metadata, the witnesses who corroborated times and places made a heavier sound than gossip. A year after the first petition, the court closed the case with a final order. I had sole legal and physical custody, and the judge warned my sister that any contact would be monitored. We were ordered to do family therapy once a month for 6 months to try to rebuild what could be rebuilt. I went to the sessions because I wanted to try to stop hate from becoming my son's inheritance. Months later, my sister sent one message through my mother asking if there could be slow contact. I archived it without replying and told my mom I wasn't ready. My parents visited less, which was its own kind of punishment. I understood why. They had been split and now needed time to repair between themselves and me. My son started preschool again without court interference. He learned to draw stick figures that looked like me and him holding hands. For a minute, I thought that was enough. But even now, I jump at the sound of a knock when it comes late, and my heart remembers the fear. The judge sealed most of the evidence, but I kept copies of everything in a locked drawer. I didn't want to forget the way the emails felt like proof my gut was right. My sister moved 2 states away with a court-ordered probation for harassment and false reporting. I didn't go to her leaving. I wasn't ready to see her like that. People asked why I didn't press criminal charges. Because I wanted my son safe, and the court had already put protections in place that worked better for our family than dragging it through another public trial. I told my son about the bad choices in simple terms when he asked. I said some grown-ups make bad decisions and we make safe choices instead. He asked if his aunt would come to his birthday. I said not yet. He accepted it like kids do. Moving on to cake. I went back to work and to late night worries and to watching him sleep. I locked the door a little more carefully, and I didn't leave him alone in the car for a second, even for groceries. Sometimes I still find myself rereading those emails to make sure I remember the facts. They hurt and they healed in weird ways. My sister texted once the year after everything ended to say she was sorry that it had all gone so wrong. I didn't reply. I filed for financial reimbursement of legal costs and won part of it in court. That helped, but it didn't erase the weeks of looking at walls while he was with the supervised visitor center. I told my parents they could visit on days I picked, and they had to commit to not bringing up my sister around my son. They agreed because they wanted to see their grandson. We had a small Thanksgiving that year with my parents and a cousin who had supported me. My son spilled his juice and my dad got up to help and didn't lecture anyone about boundaries. For the first time in a long time, the house felt like it belonged to us again. My son fell asleep on the couch that night with his head on my knee, and I carried him to bed like I always had. I still don't know how to feel about my sister, but at least my son didn't lose his mom.